At 7 feet tall and nearly 280 pounds, Alexander Karmanov looks like he was built in a lab. And, oh yeah, he's only 17. He's bigger than Zdeno Chára ever was, and heavier than almost every NBA player last season. And now, this giant kid from a quiet corner of Moldova is chasing an impossible dream. In a sport ruled by speed and precision, the idea of a 7-foot defenseman reaching the NHL is crazy, and his journey to make it this far is even crazier. Yet, Karmanov is already proving the unthinkable. This is the wild story of Alexander Karmanov, a kid from Moldova looking to make NHL history. Let's dive in. Alexander's story begins in Chisinau, the capital of Moldova, a country where hockey barely flickers on the sport's radar. His parents, Igor and Tatiana, raised him in an environment where opportunities on the ice were rare and fragile. Moldova had only one real indoor rink, a humble sheet of ice called Ice Bravo. It wasn't much. No buzzing crowds, no junior scouts lurking in the stands, no cutting-edge training facilities. But for young Alexander, it was paradise. From the moment he first laced up a pair of skates, something about gliding across that ice felt right. He was a towering figure, even then, towering above his teammates in school photos, gangly and grinning. He grew so fast that his parents had to order clothes from abroad, and skates became obsolete within months. But with height came curiosity, and Alexander loved learning the sport, soaking in every drill, every pass, every clumsy fall, as though each moment were another piece of a puzzle he was destined to solve. But fate has a way of testing even the most determined hearts. When Ice Bravo closed its doors, it left Alexander without a rink, without ice time, without a place to chase this unlikely dream. Most kids would have stopped there. Instead, his parents made a decision that would shape the rest of his life. They left Moldova. They packed up everything familiar and moved to Russia so their son could pursue hockey in a place that could nurture his talent. In the Moscow region, Alexander joined the youth system of Vityaz Podolsk, a program known for grinding players through intense training and discipline. Suddenly, this kid who once skated alone in an empty Moldovan rink was practicing with players who lived and breathed hockey. It was intimidating, exhausting, and, at first, overwhelming. He was still raw, still figuring out how to move a body that large with the finesse the sport demanded. But what he lacked in polish, he made up for with sheer determination. Coaches quickly realized they were dealing with something rare. By age 15, Alexander was already brushing up against 7 feet tall. Hockey equipment didn't exist in his size. Under Armour, the OHL's jersey provider, had to build his jersey from a goalie's cut just to make it fit around his shoulders and down his frame. His shin pads and elbow pads were custom built. His pants were bespoke. He wore size 15 skates, each one like a small boat. When he stood on the ice, he didn't just look tall, he looked like a figure from a myth, an icebound giant dropped into a world of regular-sized teenagers. That sheer physical presence began to turn heads. In the 2023-24 season, playing for Vityaz Podolsk's U16 squad, he recorded a goal and 3 assists in just 9 games, chipping in 10 penalty minutes along the way. They weren't gaudy numbers, but the raw production didn't matter as much as what he represented, a defender with insane reach. Someone who could erase passing lanes just by standing there. Someone who could clear out the front of the net with a single shove. His size wasn't just a spectacle, it was becoming a weapon. Soon, he began attracting interest from across the Atlantic. North American scouts were fascinated, not just because of his size, but because of his surprising fluidity. For someone so tall, he wasn't awkward. He could pivot. He could move laterally. And though his first few strides were still a work in progress, there was balance in his game. That led to a pivotal decision. Alexander left Russia and moved to the United States to join the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights 16U AAA program. It was a bold leap, uprooting again, crossing continents to pursue a future that was still just a dream. But it worked. Playing in the US gave him exposure to a different style of hockey, faster, more physical, more structured. It also got him noticed by major junior scouts. In 2025, he was drafted by the Fargo Force in the USHL entry draft and by the Brantford Bulldogs in the CHL import draft. Even more impressively, he earned a verbal commitment to play NCAA Division I hockey at Penn State, one of the top college programs in the country. It was official. The 7-foot kid from Moldova had carved his name into the North American hockey landscape. Of course, every conversation about Alexander circles back to that number, 7 feet tall. To put that in perspective, Zdeno Chára, the tallest player in NHL history, stood 6 foot 9 inches. Chára was a late bloomer, a raw Slovakian kid who grew into one of the greatest shutdown defenders the league has ever seen, winning a Norris Trophy and captaining the Boston Bruins to a Stanley Cup. People forget how long it took him to get there. He wasn't polished at 18. He didn't skate like a gazelle, but he worked relentlessly, refining his stride, mastering his gap control, learning how to use his length as a sword instead of a crutch. By the time he retired, he had played more games than any other defenseman in NHL history. That's the shadow Alexander now skates in, and it's both a blessing and a burden. Comparisons to Chára are inevitable, so are the doubts. Scouts whispered the same questions. Can someone that big move fast enough to keep up with Connor McDavid? Can his knees and hips handle the stress of an 82-game NHL season? Can he turn and pivot quickly enough to stop a rush at full speed? There's a reason there's never been a 7-foot NHL skater. Physics itself becomes an opponent at that size. But if history has taught hockey anything, it's that outliers sometimes rewrite the rules. Chára did. Victor Hedman, though not as tall, broke the mold for big defensemen by pairing size with elegant skating. Ben Bishop, though a goaltender, showed how to turn unusual size into an advantage rather than a liability. Alexander's task is to follow that path, to become more than a novelty, to become indispensable. He knows it won't be easy. Every part of his game demands sharpening. His skating must get quicker. His stride, already long, must become more explosive. His stick handling must tighten, because at 7 feet, even a small reach error can turn into a costly turnover. He has to master positioning, learn to read the ice 2 steps ahead, and keep his conditioning elite. Carrying 278 pounds up and down the sheet for 25 minutes a night takes an extraordinary engine, and perhaps most importantly, he has to build resilience. Every night, every rink, every opponent will bring the same extra motivation to be the one who took down the giant. That kind of spotlight can crush a teenager or forge him into steel. What makes Alexander compelling isn't just that he's tall, it's that he's already defied the odds to get this far. He started in a country that has never produced an NHL player. He's endured 2 international moves before turning 17, chasing a dream with no roadmap to follow. He's had to custom build nearly every piece of gear he wears. He's faced whispers that he's too tall, too slow, too awkward, and responded by getting better every single year. His size drew attention, but his persistence is what's carried him. The next chapter of his story will play out at Penn State in 2027. The NCAA schedule will pit him against older, faster players, many of them NHL draft picks. And how he fares will tell the hockey world a lot about whether he can make the leap from curiosity to legitimate prospect. If he holds his own, if he can blend his sheer size with smart defensive play, crisp passing, and punishing physicality, his draft stock will rise fast. NHL general managers are always hunting for unicorns. A 7-foot defenseman who can skate even moderately well is a unicorn. If he struggles, though, the microscope will tighten. Every flaw will be magnified. That's the double-edged sword of his fame. His ceiling is sky high, but his floor is steep. Scouts can't project him like they would a typical prospect. He's attempting something that's never been done, but that's exactly what makes his story so worth watching. In 10 years, we might look back at Alexander Karmanov as a fascinating footnote, a giant who tried and fell short. Or we might look back on him as the first of his kind, a player who shattered hockey's assumptions about size and carved a path no one else thought existed. For now, he's just a teenager with an impossible dream. He's the kid who once skated alone in a crumbling Moldovan rink, chasing pucks in the cold air, believing he could belong in the same league as his heroes. He's the kid who grew into a giant and decided to chase that belief halfway across the world. Every stride he takes now carries the weight of that journey and the weight of the possibility that one day a 7-foot defenseman will tower over the NHL. And that's the journey of Alexander Karmanov's career thus far. So, what do you think? Is Karmanov destined to be the next Chára? Let us know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more videos.